Thank you. So while I come from the company that makes Swiss real coin, that's crypto real estate, I'm not here actually to do a pitch. I'm just actually here to share with you a little bit our experience that we had with the KYC process. And I know it's very hard to follow up with the presentation just heard. It's not as exciting as building an entire new country, but I'll try my best. So basically, I am the COO of Crypto Real Estate. We're a Switzerland-based company that provides software on the blockchain for real estate companies by helping them free up some cash from their balance sheets. We had planned our own ICO back in May, and so we did the entire process of fundraising, getting money, getting people to invest in us, and part of it was doing the KYC process and being compliant with all laws and regulatory frameworks. That gave us a quite unique experience and quite unique insight into the thing. KYC in the age of blockchain is something quite interesting because it might change a lot over the next few years. And well, I'm here to talk about that. So the past year has been incredible for ICOs and blockchain, and the amount of money that has flown into the space was amazing. Regulators and countries have seen that and they have reacted to it. One way they have reacted was by protecting investors and consumers by requiring the companies well, get a little bit more professional, and that people don't just invest in something that has a PowerPoint presentation and nothing else. The other way that governments reacted to it was by checking that the money that comes into the crypto space is actually clean money. It's unfortunately a problem that in the crypto space there is a lot of possibilities to launder money. It's a little bit of an elephant in the room that nobody speaks about, but it's there. I can share a small story from our time that we were raising funds. We were invited by this wealthy investor. We were contacted by a Swiss banker. Yes, I know it's very stereotypical, but and we met him at a hotel, and he was like, "Look, I will invest 2 million with you, and 2 million next week, and 2 million after that. But you need to pick up the money in cash from a hotel in Geneva, from their vault, and after you get it, you transfer back half of the money back to me." So that is like money laundering 101. We obviously did not go through with it, but it shows how easy it is to get in contact with this type of stuff. So governments started to require companies in the crypto space to do the KYC process, to get to know their investors, and make sure that none of the dirty money goes into it. That meant that blockchain companies had to change a little bit from the more unregulated ICOs, utility tokens, towards a more regulated security token offering where they had certain standards that normal financial companies have. This was good and bad. It was bad because crypto companies are usually smaller startups, so they don't have the capital availability of a big bank. They have to comply with some of the same laws and rules, but they don't have the money for it. But it was also good because it forced an additional professionalism into the space. By having a mandatory KYC process in the crypto space, you are basically also telling investors, hey, look, I care about laws, I care about following and being compliant with all regulatory frameworks. And companies that don't do that, you might start to question whether they will actually follow through on what they promise if they don't follow the regulatory frameworks. Obviously, what I'm saying here depends on jurisdiction. I'm coming from Switzerland, so in Switzerland we have, even though we are very active in the crypto space, we also have a very strong regulator, the FINMA, which is the Swiss FCA. So it doesn't apply to all jurisdictions, but in general, it's a trend that we see in the industry. What does that mean for the consumer, though? Basically, for the consumer, nobody knows what KYC is. Nobody cares about what KYC is. If you ask the general public, they will not have heard of these 3 letters at all. But the thing is, nobody needs to know what KYC is. It should be just an initial process, initial step in the entire process of investing into something. And especially, it shouldn't feel like a burdensome process to investors or to customers. It doesn't make sense to have the world's best and safest KYC process if nobody does it. If nobody invests, it's completely useless. Nevertheless, the KYC process is essential to companies. It protects investors, and it protects the companies themselves. You have a lot of legal liability if you accept money that is not okay. But there's a big problem as well. KYC processes are expensive. There was a study last year that showed that US banks, general US banks, pay up to $600 million a year just in KYC costs. That's a huge amount of money that just shows how much regulation is needed, or how much a regulatory framework needs to approve things. A normal KYC process takes 4 weeks. That's the customer walks in, he shows all the documents, 4 weeks pass, and then he's approved. That is an incredibly long time. And I guess we're all here in blockchain space, that's way too long. We want things done faster, better, and more efficiently. Additionally, especially with blockchain, we have the unique opportunity to build this entire ecosystem around the customer. The most important thing is that KYC tools work well, they check what they need to check, but they need to be built around the customer experience. As I said earlier, if you don't have any customers that go through the KYC process, you could have the best process in the world, but nobody cares. And if it's too burdensome, nobody's going to do it. So this is the problem that we stand in front of it. And we had that for ourselves as well. We developed our own investment dashboard that did all of that automatically. And nevertheless, we had a lot of people that registered, that came onto our website, and then never went through with it, just because they didn't understand what it was. And that's why and that's why our experience shows we don't need customers to need to know that they need to pass this process. It needs to be natural. Just like with your phone, you don't need to know how the fingerprint sensor works to unlock it. People don't need to know what the KYC process is in order to invest. But the future looks better. There is a lot of potential in the future. And this is where the blockchain comes in. So basically, especially in the past few months, there have been a lot of pilot projects about having a single identity KYC. That means a single identity that you have that then gets shared to various companies depending on what they need. I bet all of you have opened a bank account. Some of you might have 2 bank accounts. Some banks have certain requirements, others have different ones. And even though you have done the process 3, 4, 5 times, you have to start from scratch again. Imagine if you could just undo that and just do it once, and with all the documents, and then each bank could request the documents that they need to get through it. That would be A, more efficient, B, faster, and C, it would be easier for the customer. It checks all the boxes that I talked about earlier. There was this pilot project a few months ago in Singapore where KPMG, together with the Singapore government and 3 big banks, they introduced a pilot project where they actually set up this single identity KYC. With the help of the government, they got the data from the government database, fed it to banks, and it was officially approved by the government, so banks were allowed to use it. And it had some quite amazing results. First of all, the cost of a single KYC process went down by 25 to 50%. So there was an immediate savings potential. And all parties said that is actually a very good and faster thing. What another project did where IBM worked with other financial institutions was that they did the same thing basically, but their savings showed that the savings are at least 20%, so they were a little bit more conservative, but that the turnaround time went from 4 weeks to just 1 week. So they cut it by 75%. This is basically what we want to achieve. In general, we would all like to have less paperwork. We all hate paperwork. We would love to have things a little bit simpler, And having a single identity KYC will get us there. There are still a few problems though. First of all, we need to prove that the technology is viable and scalable. These were all pilot projects. We need to do it on a bigger scale. Second of all, we need to have the government work with us or work with companies to give them access to the database. Without government databases, we cannot really do anything, and without government approval, all the KYC processes don't count. And third of all, we need a standardization of data formats. If all our data is on 10 different blockchains, public, privates, whatever, in 10 different formats, and it can't talk to each other, that's useless again. So this is exactly where I see and where we at Swiss Real Coin and Crypto Real Estate see the future of KYC going into a future where the customer is in the center, things go faster, cost less, and they're easier to do. Thank you very much, and again, it's not as exciting as Liberland, but I hope you learn a little bit more about it. Thank you.